I'm Ryan Morris, and this is Nick Smith. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. We've got a great show for you where we're going to help you to rise up, lift up, stand up, wake up with Giants. We've got a great show. Nick, will you introduce our guest?
I will. Yeah, I've got Jared Miller on with us, and Jared has quite the road to recovery. And I'll post a little comment here in a minute, but to recover means to regain your consciousness, to regain what you had lost, and talk about a journey. Jared came up kind of through the ranks quickly, went to college coaching. Is that right? College coaching. So life was looking good, and then tragedy hit. Your dad passed away, your brother passed away, your wife left you, and you started leaning on drugs to kind of get through that and became addicted to it. And so you've got this journey of going from that addiction, from life being good to the bottom to back to the top again. And so I'm really looking forward to having you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity, buddy.
You're welcome. So I'm going to ask you some questions, but let's get off course too. So if there's anything that comes up, just run with it. And I want to start kind of going back. What we like to explore is the journey that you've been through, and what it took for you to get to where you are today, because it helps people to connect with that and relate to it. And so I want to go all the way back to the beginning of what was it like growing up for you? Was life as a child, was it hard? Was it easy? Did you have parents who were motivational?
Yeah. So first of all, let me just touch on, I love that you call it a journey. I think one thing that frustrates me, and I don't know why, it's just kind of that thing that I nitpick at, when people say, I love your story. It's like, it's not a story. It's my life.
It was real.
Right. I lived it. It was my journey. So thank you. I love that. My childhood was awesome. I can't complain. I had an amazing mom. I had an amazing dad. My mother, she was a beautician, cut hair. I mean, I smell a perm to this day, and I think of like childhood memories. You know what I mean? Of like my mom doing people's hair in the house. And so, yeah, very loving home. I come from a family of 5. I had 2 older brothers, an older sister, and a younger brother. My dad was a Vietnam vet. He served with the 101st Airborne. He was a paratrooper. For those of you that don't know the 101st, he was a stud. And
awesome.
He taught me a lot of stuff. I think he took from the military that he would implement with all of us kids. So I had a great childhood.
Was there any naysaying when you were growing up? Did you ever kind of go through the bullying phase, or whether within your family or without? Did you ever experience that?
Yes. I've always had naysayers. When I was little, I was kind of like a chubby kid, which I'm still like. I always joke when I go and I talk to places and I say I'm a fat kid at heart, right? Like I love food. So I was a heavier set kid, so I got teased a lot and bullied a lot, and maybe that's why I got involved in sports, is to have some physical activity and make some friends.
Right.
I absolutely hated elementary school, hated it, because I was that chubby kid. I had nice little man boobies, and the older kids would pinch me and tease me and.
Oh man.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, I'm still racking.
There they are.
But
there they are.
Yeah. So
you just made some hearts melt.
I
guarantee it. Somebody's watching that. They're flushed right now, right?
I still got them, but I can make them dance now. So.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you made me blush a little.
Oh, my bad.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and naysayers are kind of part of the journey as well. And even now, it's crazy. You start pushing out a message, and you get people that just are opposed to it. And we might jump into that a bit. But he was talking about a friend of his who's a white rapper, and that he's at the level that he gets death threats because of what he's doing. And I was just thinking, man, I'm not even at death threat level. I got some work to do.
Right?
Got to keep on going.
Yeah.
So there's a book out there that I absolutely love. It's Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
In Grant's book, he talks about, look, you're making progress when you have haters, right? When you have haters, when you have people that are trying to tell you, you're basically hating on you for whatever it is you're doing. Well, guess what? That means you're making some progress. You're attracting attention. So I guess that comes with part of the territory. The one thing that I put up a post a couple weeks ago on social media that said something about haters, and I just basically wrote like, stop giving away your power. Not every action deserves a response.
Right.
You know? So yeah, it comes with the territory.
It's part of the journey, right?
Yeah. In fact, there was somebody that put my very first YouTube video I ever made. There's somebody that, you know, got on everybody's a tough guy behind the keyboard, got on there and sent me a nice little message. And I just sent it back and said, hey, thanks for your thoughts. God bless you. Whatever.
Love you too.
Right.
Did he say anything? Did he respond or?
No.
What's funny is as I was asking the questions, my phone shut off and I lost the questions. So we're going to wing it. If that works.
Questions.
I love
Questions.
I'm going to go back to it though. But yeah, I think a lot of people forget that is that, you know, in the book, there's a part where the Smalls talk about the small and they're like, dude, you can't do this. Giants are special. You're not special. Who are you? And who are you to talk about this? And people want credentials and all this stuff. And man, it's amazing that the people that are most impactful don't have a degree. They don't have certificates and all this stuff. They're just people like you and me that are just doing it.
Yeah.
I like that.
I get this question asked all the time, especially because on social media, if you kind of know what you're doing, you join other groups, right?
Yeah.
So I'll join some groups that are like addiction professionals, right? And I'll get on there and put my stuff, and people will say, "Oh, what's your degree in? You know, where'd you get your formal education from?" And I'll say, "I have a bachelor's degree in exercise science." Well, what does that, how does that make you an expert on the topic of addiction? Because I lived it, right? Like I didn't read it in a book. It's my life. So I was
gonna say like a black belt in badassery.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I'm no statistic.
You've lived it.
Yeah, I'm no statistic. If you look at the statistics from people who have overcome being homeless, the statistics of heroin addicts who overcome a heroin addiction, the statistics of people that are suicidal and have mental health problems, and I wouldn't say you ever truly overcome that because it's something you'll always struggle with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I might not be famous. I might not drive a Lamborghini, but I damn sure ain't a statistic.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That's powerful. What you just said right there.
That makes you a giant.
Yeah. Because it's not about the material. It is, material can be a part of it, but really it's the impact you're having on others and just showing, look, I can get through this. You can get through this. And that's what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're inspiring people. So I want to dive into your journey a little bit, just going all the way back to where this all began when your dad passed away, your brother passes away. I'm just going to let you talk and just share that story if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, great childhood, had two amazing parents. When I was in high school, I remember coming home and it was probably halfway through my sophomore year. And both my parents were there, and it was kind of a weird thing because, came from a working family. Both mom and dad always had jobs. And my dad and mom sat all of us kids down and told us, your dad has a terminal illness, which at the time you don't really understand kind of what that means, and it just scares the crap out of you. And I tell people this all the time. When I was a sophomore in high school, which I'm not trying to glorify, I realize it's high school days, right? But when I was a sophomore in high school, I didn't even start on the sophomore squad. I wasn't even part of the one of the 11 that started. But my dad loved sports. He loved camaraderie. He loved, I think he learned that from sports he did when he was growing up in the Army. And so I wanted to make him proud. And so I went from not even starting on the sophomore team to my junior year starting varsity. So
wow,
it became a pretty big motivator for me to push myself, which the takeaway from that, I look back and go, I got a 4-year degree. By the age of 22, I was the first person in my family to graduate college with a 4-year degree. They call us first-generation students. So I was pretty proud of that. By the age of 24, I was a teaching out in Arizona, head football coach, married with a kid. So around that time is when I got the call from my mom, and she said, "Hey, your dad's really sick." And I'm like, "Mom, they've been saying that for they've been saying that for years." My dad was a tough He's a tough nail. He would go in and joke with the doctors and be like, oh, I thought I was supposed to die years ago. How much longer do I have now? He was just tougher than nails. And she said, no, like this time, it's getting serious. So I flew home from Arizona. I was teaching and coaching out in Arizona. And I took my dad and I went and did like the fun stuff that he used to take me to do as a kid. We went camping. We went fishing. I took him to the Ogden Raptors and the Bees baseball game. Just a lot of stuff that he would take and do with me growing up. And had an incredible time. I could definitely tell that he was getting close. But again, I'd been kind of hearing it for years. So the morning before I got on the plane, I was helping my dad kind of get ready. We were going to go to breakfast, and then I was going to jump on a plane to go back to Arizona. I had 2-a-days the very next day, and it was my first year as a head coach. And I remember my dad getting emotional. And now I'm, and he asked me, he said, Jared, can you just stay a couple more days?
Huh.
And I remember the time saying to him, like, Dad, I can't. I've been working so hard, like I'm tapping into living my dream. I can't. And selfishly, I got on the plane and I left, and he died 2 days later. I flew home on a Sunday, and he died on a Tuesday morning. So that was extremely hard for me, and that's when the guilt set in. I had a hard time sleeping. Throughout my college playing years, I had several injuries. I shattered my ankle and had shoulder surgery, and so I had pain meds laying around. And unfortunately, as a dumb young kid, without losing my cornerstone of my life and my role model, my dad, I thought, well, if these pain meds are good for physical pain, I remember taking them and sleeping like a baby, despite having a rod and 6 screws in my ankle. I'll take them to get some sleep so that I can stop the noise. And that ultimately was the beginning stages of a full-blown addiction, which was just manipulating doctors for a long time and filling them, through a pharmacy. And then my brother, a couple years later, my brother passed away, and that was extremely hard for me because not only was he my brother, but he was like my best friend. I remember I was down at Snow College, and I was driving back, and the roads were terrible, and it was snowing, and I was coming through that canyon. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with what canyon I'm talking about, but I'm coming through a canyon. The roads are terrible. I'm this big dude, right, like 230 pounds, linebacker, and it's super hot, and I'd already turned the heat off. And again, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, and so I thought, I'm going to take my coat off. That's a good idea. Instead of just rolling down the window, I'll take my coat off. I had a big leather coat on. And I'm pulling my coat off, and I get stuck, like right here. And my truck swerves off the road, jumps the ditch, and takes out about 5 fence posts of like a farmer's field.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I'm like, it's late at night, and I'm like, man, who do I call? Who do I call for help? My older brother, Jason. And of course, he picked up. He's like, you idiot, I'm on the way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's one of countless stories I could tell you where I needed my brother's help, and he was always there for me.
Yeah.
So to lose him was extremely hard.
You go through this phase of like the loss of your dad and the loss of your brother. And I know there's a lot of people that have experienced grief in some form, and it doesn't have to look extreme like that. That's the extreme side, but we just try to shut this noise off in our head, and we find different ways to do it. And it sounds like you got spun up in this cycle of masking that noise with the pills. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And it was progressive. It's not like, when I first started taking the medications because of my surgeries and stuff, I hated the way that they made me feel.
Right.
So when I talk about addiction, I always tell people it doesn't always happen by just peer pressure. It doesn't always happen by hanging out with the wrong group of people. A lot of times we have an emotion or something that happens that is hard on us, weighs on us, and we don't go about pursuing the right help. We put on the tough guy mask,
right?
Self-medicate, and we start thinking, oh, I know best, and unfortunately that was me. And so when I went through those, it went from taking medication, the pain meds at night to sleep, to anytime I had an uncomfortable emotion. If a song came on the radio and it reminded me of a memory of my dad or my brother, pop,
Right.
pop. Anytime, it was just, I just started really using it as a heavy crutch. So
it's amazing how the body like supports you in that, right? Like the body doesn't care. It just wants you to be supported. And so it comes in and creates these pathways and these behaviors that make that easy. And it takes a lot of effort to come out of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And going through that was super hard. And I think that's when I started to distance myself. Look, my divorce, you put out there, and your wife left you. My wife left me for good reason. I was coping like a coward through pills, and I was self-isolating, and I would come home, and because I was numbing out and I wasn't myself, she'd be sitting on the couch watching TV after a long day, and I would go sit on the opposite side of the couch. I don't know if it's because I didn't want her to see that I was intoxicated or high. I don't know if it was just the shame that I felt, but I started distancing myself. I started burning through money because eventually the doctors caught on and were like, these surgeries are years old. Like, you shouldn't need this medication anymore, which good for them. But unfortunately, because there wasn't a follow-up plan to that, I started buying them, sadly. And so I started draining our bank account. Like, my divorce and what happened with that is 100% on me. Like, it's my responsibility. I take total blame for it. And that's something I have to live with for the rest of my life, because she was an amazing person. She was the first love of my life. I have 2 beautiful kids with her. So yeah, that was tough. And when that happened, that's when I just completely lost all sense of caring, right? Like, it went from bad to, I'm a tough guy, I don't need help, I'm going to keep everybody at a lance length away, and stopped going to work. Started turning to heroin instead of pills because it was cheaper. At this time, I'd lost my single bedroom apartment because, again, I wasn't going to work. Moved in with my mom. My mom found out that I was doing heroin and kicked me out. Gave me a ride to the front runner and had a bag of clothes, man.
Wow.
So,
Is that emotion still pretty heavy right now around that?
So today I talk as, I don't really like to call it a motivational speaker. I talk as an empowerment speaker. Okay. And I like to talk on the things that I've learned in my 6-year journey of recovery. And I understand telling my journey is a big part of it.
Yeah.
However, it is hard. It's extremely hard because I live it, right? Like, I feel those emotions every single time I talk about it. I live those emotions. And so, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
They come back up. And I mean, you can make amends and you can say sorry, but sometimes you can't always remend those relationships.
I think this is a vital part right here to the adventure of becoming a giant, is that people think that they've got to clear those emotions out. I can't feel bad. I got to think positive all the time. I'm never going to feel negative emotions again. I'm not going to remember all the bullshit that I went through. The truth is, as a giant, that's very present.
Yeah.
Beep.
Yeah.
The beeping out of the language. I'm going to swear, Ryan. So just,
I think too, if you cover up those things, you act like they don't exist. Number one, you're just suppressing it, which for me and my addiction was the very start of why I started self-medicating, right? Is because I was suppressing emotion.
Yeah.
So if you look at me and you can see I'm getting emotional and you think I'm a big baby, then that's cool. I'll be a big baby. But today I'm 1 month shy of 6 years clean. I have a blessed life today. But yeah, when I reflect back on those times, it is hard. And it's okay for it to be hard. I can acknowledge that it's hard.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, that's very important to say. Go ahead, Ryan.
Nick did a video this morning about how only you can change you. You can't it's interesting because a lot of people are always looking for that outside magical pill, right? And I say pill kind of tongue in cheek, but I had a friend who was addicted to heroin, and he had been in a car accident and had got a lot of money, and then but a couple of our friends were killed in that car accident, and so along with it came a whole bunch of survivor's guilt, and he struggled for a lot of years, and we did everything we could to help him, but ultimately when he finally decided, when things got better, and he had to make a conscious decision that he was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that he was going to be the one to change. And yeah, I mean, we could do all kinds of things. The family sent him to detox and all these other programs, and fed him full of books and positivity. It didn't make any difference until he decided that he wanted a change.
Yeah.
And so that's a powerful message. I hope that people listening and that are out there don't have to go through that extreme, but there's some that in reality, this is life. It's a journey. Stuff happens. Bad things do happen to good people, and hard things happen to good people. But I'm hoping that people out there will listen to this and be able to maybe learn some lessons, equip themselves with some extra tools, so that if or when this ever happens to them, that they can maybe utilize and lean on some of those things. And so thanks for sharing that message. I know it was hard, and not to make light of it when you talk like that, like, hey, my dad died, my brother died, my wife left me, my dog left me. I thought we were getting a country artist in here or something, like it sounded like a country song for a minute. Maybe you should write some country music.
No, geez. Yeah, maybe. But the idea is that we all have that kind of music in us in some form, whether it's the loss of somebody. We have a friend that was on the show that her son committed suicide at 17. Right. I have people who have been shamed their whole life because they're not straight, or, they have preferences that are different, or their skin is different, just powerful people, but they're affected by life. Life tends to hand us kind of this. I like to use the analogy of clay. It's like it dumps this clay on your table and says, here you go. Here's what you get to work with. Right. And then we all decide, this is ridiculous. This is the dumbest pile of clay I've ever seen. I hate this. Why did I get handed this piece of shit? You can beep that. And some of us take that pile and we mold it into something amazing. It is the same pile, it's the same clay, but it takes those hardships to recognize, what, this might look good over here, and this might look good over here, and I can shift this little thing here. And it's these small steps that create big changes. And you've got a saying that you say this right here: turn trials into triumphs, right?
Tragedy to triumphs.
What is it? Tragedies?
Tragedy to triumph. But
let me rewrite that. But can you speak about that?
Yeah. So I love what you guys are talking about. And Ryan, you spoke directly to why I do what I do today. I do what I do today because I realize trauma is trauma, right? Just because I experienced something. And listen, there's 100 other Jareds out there that could come on here and give you, their journey and the things that they've been through. So trauma is trauma. And I talk on what I do today, and I push and I promote what I do today, because if I can help somebody out there so that they don't have to hit the rock bottom that I had to hit, homeless on July 3rd of 2014, attempted to take my own life, then honestly, I feel like I'm fulfilling the purpose that God kept me around for. And people can say I'm crazy. They can say, that I'm delusional, but I truly believe that when I was detoxing in a jail cell and I tried taking my own life, I basically said the first honest and real raw prayer. And it was like, okay, if it's not my time to go, if you won't let me come home, then give me direction, right? Give me a purpose. And don't get me wrong, it's not like it happened overnight. It's been a 6-year journey. But slowly he's put people in front of me, and I've crossed paths with people who have built me up. I don't think you become a giant all by yourself. You have to be ready and you have to be open to it. And then you have to recognize when those opportunities come, because somebody isn't going to walk up to you and go, hey, let me take you under my wing and teach you how to be a millionaire and be super successful and never think about drugs again. I mean, if you're waiting for that, you're going to be waiting for a long time. To me, it came in the form of, I had a manager come to me and say, hey, Jared, we want you to be a part of a leadership training group. And he handed me a book. And the book was Extreme Ownership by Jacko Willington Leaf Babin. And to me, that was the biggest tool anybody could have ever done. You know, Winston Churchill, Nick, to speak on what you're talking about, Winston Churchill has a little quote, and it's not verbatim, so don't fact check me and say, oh, he missed it. Yeah. Winston Churchill said, don't let a disaster basically go unused. Don't let a good disaster or a good tragedy go unused. In other words, you know, we're not always defined by the things that happen to us in life. And if you take it and you choose to be the narrator of your own story, you can make it a beautiful thing. The absolute thing that I love where I'm at today and I'm extremely grateful for, and I thank God for every single day, is it's gone from, oh yeah, Jared the addict, to Jared the guy who helps addicts. And that to me is worth more than any monetary value I could ever gain in life. Because number one, I got my identity back. And number two, I feel like I have an impact. I mean, I've sat down with people. I've been contacted by moms, friends, family members of people that have a loved one that won't go to detox. And I'll go over and sit down with them and talk to them. And then I talk to the families and give them some advice. And I'm not saying like I'm 100% closer by any means. But when I get that phone call or when I get that text message that, hey, they enrolled, they started, it's like, people can say I'm crazy or they can say I'm delusional, but that's when I really feel like I'm fulfilling a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
So,
do you ever feel inadequate, insecure, ineffective?
All the time, man.
Yeah.
All the time. You know, the thing I got to keep reminding myself though is I went to a religious leader and I was still playing the victim role. And I was like, why did I have to go through all this? Why did this have to happen to me? And basically, he gave me a paradigm shift, and he said, you know, this is a gift. You were given a gift. You know, when you get to the other side and God says, congratulations, you made it over that trial, even if you stayed clean and sober the rest of your life. What if he asked you, how many people did you bring along with you? What's your answer going to be? Like, oh, selfishly, I was just so concerned about the things I'd lost that I completely missed the opportunity to help other people. So
that's powerful.
So I have to remind myself, going back to your story or your question, Nick, is I have to remind myself that I'm just a tool, man. Like, as corny as that sounds, like, I do not doubt for a second who gave me the gift. And I know that he's going to put people in my path that are going to be able to help me. He's going to put people in my path that I'm going to be able to help. So
I like this. You are a tool.
Yeah. Even my ex-girlfriends would probably super agree with that.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, you can hear that. I love this because you can hear it in so many different ways. Like, you're a tool, like you're just a character that nobody wants to be around, or you're a tool, right? Like you're useful. And the reality is you're doing things that are useful to people. You're helping people to recognize that they have this potential within them to regain what they lost. I mean, that's a beautiful thing because people think if I go to giant and then back to small, how could I ever go back to giant with this huge amount of shame and guilt that comes with going back to being small, you know? And the truth is you're showing them a way that's useful.
Yeah.
I like that.
Not only that, but only you determine if you're a giant or if you're small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times you asked if I ever have doubts, right? Or insecurities or kind of along those lines. I do. I think everybody does. But what do you do with that? Do you push forward and have the courage to go through it anyways? Or do you let it keep you small? So.
I love it, man. I got to post that one up there. Only you decide, right? And it's so true because you can have the greatest mentor in the world come along and share every secret that you'd ever want to know about life. And if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They come and they bring you the fuel, but you don't keep the fire lit.
Right.
In a sense. And it really is up to us to wake up every morning and light that fire. It's, I talk about intention a lot. And every morning I set an intention. I can tell you at the end of the day, some days I feel like a small. I feel so drained. I'm impatient with people, just frustrated with life. But what I know is if I can just not act on that, go to sleep, wake up and reset, that I can still keep on the path without losing momentum. And so,
I'm glad to hear that, because here's the thing is people, so you don't have to be perfect. There's nights that I go to bed and when I bullet journal, I think about interactions I've had with people throughout the day. I do the same thing. I'm like, man, I could have been more patient. I could have been more empathetic.
Yeah.
But at that point, number one, you just learn from it, right? And you let it go. And number two, maybe you send a text message to that person in the morning and say, hey, I didn't handle that situation, the best that I could have. I apologize. Like, to me, that's the difference between a small and a big. Number one, take accountability. And number two, don't be so prideful that you can't apologize. I apologize all the time to people. Like, I can own my own side of the fence. You know what I mean? If I mess up, the difference is everybody makes mistakes. What do you do about it? Do you just act like it never happened and keep that relationship kind of fractured, or do you mend that relationship?
I like that. Yeah, so important, because you gotta clean it up. You got to get back in integrity. If you're out of integrity by the end of the night, then reset and get back in integrity the next day. If you get in a moment where you're out of integrity, well, then reset and get back into the integrity in the next moment.
Yeah. And
it doesn't mean, I love this, because just because you went down a path that wasn't ideal doesn't mean you have to stay there. And you've shown people that there's a way out. And the thing is you're not dragging them out of the mud. You're inspiring them out of the mud.
Sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Nope, keep going.
I was going to say, I think a lot of times we're talking about addiction. We'll reel it into addiction.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's a big sense of doom and gloom, right? Like when you're told in recovery, you're an addict and you're always going to be an addict.
Right.
That is heavy, man. That is super heavy. So the funny thing is I started this little dinky podcast, which is getting ready to be a bigger thing. We're going to have it professionally done here starting in August, called We Do Recover with Jared Miller. I got Terry Sellers, who is a doctor in Utah County, who's about 20 years clean, but he struggled with an opiate addiction as well. Terry's an amazing guy. He actually had the DEA knock on his door, and he went from making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, one of the most successful labor and delivery doctors in Utah County, to working at a bakery, scooping, chocolate chip cookies onto a pan, right, for like $12 an hour.
Wow, yeah.
He's been able to work.
That's not a good feeling when the government comes and knocking on your door.
Right. But what we try to do, what we're really wanting to do on that podcast, We Do Recover with Jared Miller, is highlight people who have been through an addiction, come out the other side, and not only been able to stay clean and stay sober, but they're successful, right? They're entrepreneurs. Or successful just in the means of they've been able to clean up their record. They've got a good job now. They work back in recovery, helping other people out, to break the mold of, once an addict, always an addict. Your life's doom and gloom. You're going to be a janitor for the rest of your life or work in construction. Like, nobody wants to hear that, and that's super heavy. So if I'm early in my recovery, they say if you have under a year, you're 70% likely to relapse. And it's because there's no freaking hope. There's no hope. So if I can go to somebody and say, dude, just get a year. Yeah, you might work as a janitor for a year. You might work in construction for a year. You might bus tables for a year. But it's going to get better. I can show you person after person after person who has gone the exact same path you've gone through. And now, just like I got into doing a podcast with my buddy Chaz. He owns a teriyaki grill up in Layton. My buddy Don, he owns a business doing level finish, where he does automotive finish work, and he's the owner of the business. Tyrone, a guy that I did, he started a clean clothing brand, right? Called Lit on Life. So to be able to bring that message of just hold on, right? Hope, hold on, pain ends. Like, it's going to get better. Then hopefully we can break that mold of 70% and we can lower that statistic, because in recovery, time is key. The more time you have, the more chance you have of being successful. I was fortunate. I got thrown in jail, and you don't have the option of staying clean or not staying clean. And then I immediately went into the MRC, the Men's Recovery Center. And so I was fortunate because I had almost a year clean before I even had any kind of counseling. So that's really what I try to focus on and emphasize, is bringing hope, bringing some kind of like, you can do this. People have done this, and not only have they stayed clean, but they've had massive success. So
I love it. I love that. You talk about hope. Now, what about fear? Have you ever felt afraid?
Every day. Every day.
Yes.
I come from an amazing family, but my family is done with my BS, right? Like, if I wake up every day feeling like I've got an uphill battle to climb, and that's the honest truth. I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to go into an interview and have people not want to hire you because of your record. My fear is what pushes me. My fear is what reminds me of where I could be and keeps me moving forward so that I don't ever go back there. So fear is a beautiful tool if you know how to use it.
Love it.
In the book, there's they talk about fear, Nick.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a part where they're walking through the forest, and that Small is afraid. He's afraid of what's around him. He creates all these stories and images of everything that's wrong around him, and the giant just pushes through. And he asks him if he's afraid, and he says, "Yeah, I'm afraid. I feel fear." The giant feels fear, but you just reframe it. Yeah. And I'm with you. I feel fear every day. Sometimes it's not as strong as others, but fear, you can't, I say this again and again, you can't be courageous without fear. You can't be brave without fear. It can push you, like you say, it can motivate you.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong motivator.
So I would challenge the listeners, if you're listening to this and you have something that you want to do, because look, we've talked on addiction, but I'm not a one-trick pony. I'm a motivational speaker, an empowerment speaker. If you have something that you want to do and you wake up and you feel afraid, good. Attack it. Go after it. Make a fool of yourself. In the book, there's a book called Enough Already by Mike Iamelli. And he talks about, where do we come up with this perception of positive and negative, right? Like, in other words, is it something that we were born with, or is it something that we learned through childhood mirroring? And I think a lot of people are afraid because of social pressures, or what are people going to think of me? So what? The guy, I posted my first YouTube video, and a guy got on there and made fun of me he body shamed me because of my weight, because I was a little chubbier at the time. He made fun of the logo of my company. He just went off, right? So what? All that is neutral information. Thank you for your feedback. I get to choose how I use that. So if I look at it and I can see that, you know what, maybe he has some valid points. Maybe I do need to do X, Y, or Z. I get to use that. I get to take that neutral information and use it in a positive way, instead of letting it go, oh man, I just made a fool of myself, and poor me, and I'm going to take a dip in the victim pool. And like, no, like, get brave. If you feel fear, attack it, go after it, make a fool of yourself. I dare you to make a fool of yourself, and then learn from it, and let it refine you and let you become better.
There's an unwillingness to suck at something, right?
Yeah. Everybody, NF wrote a lyric, and he said, in one of NF's lyrics talking about white rappers, NF's one of my favorite rappers. He's a Christian rapper. And he says, people think, basically, again, not verbatim, but the message is, people hear somebody on the radio and they think that they're some kind of success overnight. Little do they know, those people have been working on their craft for years, right? Like, you don't wake up one day and become Rihanna. You don't wake up one day and become, right? Like, it doesn't happen. It takes hours and hours and hours. And it takes bravery of knowing, I'm gonna screw this thing up so bad, but I'm gonna be able to go back and look at those screw ups and become better because of it. Yeah. And look, if you want to live small and just go, I'm gonna play it safe and I'm never gonna take a chance at anything, and I'm so afraid that I'm gonna fail that I'm just not gonna, then be small.
Yeah, and you can, in the story, my story has smalls. There are people that play small. They choose to play small and live that way for their whole life. And I don't end my story by saying, hey, everybody becomes a giant. Everybody gets a trophy. They don't. Life doesn't work that way. You know, I've been on this journey 11 years, and even longer than that. 11 years is where I've been focused on it, but even longer than that. And everybody that I've talked to that's been successful has suffered and struggled for a period, and usually at a minimum 5 years before they start to see a breakthrough.
Yeah. I was going out telling my story for 2 years before anybody even, and then the guy that I was telling my story under wanted $5,000 for me to continue to be his warm-up speaker. And I was like, I'm going to an event where you're getting paid and you want me to pay you to basically. So anyway, it's crazy. And here's the other thing too. I think a lot of times, like, people think to themselves, it's easier to play it safe and it's easier to play it small, right?
Yeah.
But there's a saying that I love that says, if I always do what I've always done, I'll always be where I've always been. Here's the other thing too that I think a lot of people miss the boat on. I didn't start having massive success, as far as I'm talking about, just in being able to share my message and get out there, until two things happened. Number one, I took accountability for the things that I did wrong, and I started addressing them. And number two, I started asking myself, where can I bring value? I think a lot of people in relationships, there's a book called The Power Principle by Blaine Lee. And he talks about the power of, okay, it's an exchange. So first of all, there's forceful power, which I'm going to make you do this because I say so, which a lot of parents do, right? And then there's the trade-off, the exchange power. Like, I do this for you, you do this for me. Then there's the most powerful one, which is by leading by example and just doing it to bring value. An incredible story around that just recently happened to me, if you don't mind if I share.
Absolutely.
I started asking myself, how can I bring value to people without monetary value? Or how can I start to bring value to people where they know it's just authentic and it's real and it's coming from a place of love? And I'm so blessed today because I've spent 6 years of doing that. I've spent 6 years of helping people out without expecting a paycheck. Spent 6 years helping people out, giving people advice, mentoring them, being their sponsor. I call it mentor, mentee. Some people call it sponsor, sponsee. That today I go on Facebook and I'm like, hey, so I don't know if you guys know this, but the fund in Utah for people that are transitioning from inpatient to outpatient got cut. To help people that are going from inpatient recovery to outpatient by the state of Utah got cut because of COVID and just budget stuff. And so I'm like, do I want to become part of the whiners or do I want to do something about it? So my buddy Tyrone and he inspired me to do this, kind of planted the seed. We did a fundraiser to help raise money for people that are transitioning from inpatient to outpatient. I raised $1,200 in less than 24 hours. And the majority of the people that donated to that were people that I've either worked with their friends, their family members. I've brought value to them without expecting a dime. And so then when I come back and I say, hey, I need help. I have this cause I believe in. I mean, people, to me, that's mind-blowing. $1,200 in less than 24 hours.
That's the secret.
And then to turn around and I put out there, hey, I want to do this podcast professionally. I need a sponsor. I had three people direct message me and say, hey, we want to sponsor you. And Steps Recovery, the one that I raised the $1,200 for, was the very first one to reach out. So a lot of times I think if you're asking yourself, what can people do for me? You're asking the wrong question. Ask what can you do for them and build value. And then when the time comes, it'll come back. Sorry, I just went off on a tangent, guys, but I felt inspired to say
that was a beautiful tangent.
Yeah, so. Brian, will you speak to that?
Yeah, it's super interesting because I learned that a long time ago that you can, I mean, exactly what you just said, because, and coming from a space of love, that right now is needed more than just about anything. We have a friend, we've had her on the show, Sandra Berger. I mentioned her this morning in a post, who she was trying to hold space in love, and people are attacking her from all sides, and she just held her space. And in doing so, it was amazing to see the amount of people that came to her aid. Now, this is a little different than the monetary side, but it's the same principle. And they all came, all of her fans and all the people that love her and that love her messages came to her defense, and she grew.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing, man. I'm proud of you for doing those things, because it's making a huge impact and a difference. And sometimes you don't realize that impact right away. It's like planting a little seed and it starts to grow. You might not even notice it for a while. And years down the road, the impact that you made on somebody's life could be gigantic. And you might not ever even know about it. You might not ever hear the story, but the words and the expressions and the things that you're doing are helping thousands and thousands of people's lives. It has a ripple effect. So keep going. You're doing an amazing job, and we're proud to be your friends and to highlight what you're doing. Tell us how we can. We're just about to go over a little bit on time. Are you still good on time?
Yeah, I'm good.
Tell us how we can find you. What can we do to support you in what you're doing?
I appreciate that. Thank you, Ryan. So I have a website, millermotivationgroup.com. There's me, and then there's several other speakers. And the speakers that I bring on, right, like we're not coming on to try to promote or sell certain products. It's all messages of hope. It's messages of people that have gone from tragedy to triumph. And we have an event coming up. Stacy Burnell, her tagline is "See Stacy Speak." Her motto, kind of like mine's tragedy to triumph. Hers is failure to finisher. She has an event down here July 18th at the Holiday Inn here in St. George, next to the convention center. The tickets are $25. You get one of her. She has a foundation that helps support like Ogden Awesome Autism. She also helps with like empowering other people, female leaders in the industry, that type of stuff. It's called the Burnell Badassery Foundation. And so you get a little buff that you can use as like a sweatband or over your mouth, right? Like she's got her presentation. I call it a workshop because what we do is more than just talking. We really like to interact with the crowd and get feedback and have it be more of a workshop. Unleash Your Inner Badass is the name of it. You can find that on, if you go to the Miller Motivation Group Facebook page, click on the events tab, you can get you a ticket there. As well as, just keep your eyes and ears open for any other events that we do. Before the COVID-19 thing, a lot of it was getting contracted out, right? Foundations, organizations, and corporations contacting us and wanting us to go talk for them. Well, you got to adapt or die. And when the COVID-19 thing hit, it was like, okay, well, we're not going to die. We're going to adapt. And so we started doing our own events until things kind of get back to normal. So it'd be helpful if people were interested, wanted to come on and support that. A portion of the profits are going to go to her foundation. Check out the podcast when it comes out. We do Recover with Jared Miller. I've done a couple kind of pre-launches. However, we're going to hold off until we get into the facility. It's Radio St. George. So just support that. Yeah.
It's perfect, man.
I appreciate it.
Well, we're excited for you, and what we'll do is we see your posts and things like that. We'll continue to highlight you and share and comment if that's all right with you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And hey, I would love to be able to do the same thing. I love your guys' message. I mean, it's almost like, yeah, the smalls and giants, like it's metaphorical, but it's so true in life. And really there needs to be more of it. So kudos to you guys. Like, I think it's an amazing concept and it's done super professionally well. Matter of fact, maybe we need to talk because I'm not real fancy. I'm like, look, here's the message. I'm going to give it to you raw. I don't sexy it up very much, but what you guys got going on, man, looks like you're.
I don't know.
Hollywood
I'm in a Dodge Avenger at the moment.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, I watched the YouTube video of your guys' the Smalls and Giants, and I was blown away. I was like, "Holy cow! Somebody needs a job in animation." Like, it's
my brother
Pride Smith.
That's amazing.
He's down in St. George. Just he's an incredible artist and talented. He's just a visual marketer. just incredible. And he created that for me. So that was awesome.
It is awesome.
Jared, it's I know there's so much more inside of you that we didn't even pull out in this video. And I would ask you just one final thought from you. If you were to give advice to somebody that's going on the journey, maybe experiencing what you've experienced, what would you say to them?
Okay, it's super complicated. Is everybody ready? Listeners?
Get your pencils out.
Get started and don't quit. Get started and don't quit. The other thing, too, that I want to break the concept of, a lot of the things that I talk on, it's not like I just is giving you revelation. I read so many books, right? What I'm trying to say is start self-educating, not because a professor tells you to, not because you got to do it for a college credit. Personal development. That is the key to this thing. Whether it's being a professional in a certain industry, whether it's no matter what it is. And I talk on addiction, but the principles are all the same. Personal development. Get yourself a good self-help book. Start reading it. Start applying the principles. Again, get started and don't quit.
I want to speak to that a little bit before we finish. Are we good on time? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Hey, we can do this for as long as you guys want. You guys are the boss.
I'm going to dig into that and then we'll wrap up. But at my work, we have this thing called a draw bank, right? And so as I earn money, I put it into this bank and then I can draw from it as I need it. And in life, we have the opportunity to do the same thing with information. And I shove as much information, like somebody calls it hand jamming, I call it whatever. You're just putting this information into that draw bank that you can draw from when you need it. And the more you have, the more creative you can become with it. Einstein, the beauty of Einstein, and I've said this a few times, is that he didn't have a brain that was any more special than yours or mine. He just filled his draw bank up so much that he had more to draw from, and he manipulated it in such a way that he created amazing things. And everybody that's creative has done that. Ryan spoke about, sometimes you don't even see the results of your efforts in your lifetime. I think it was Van Gogh that sold one painting in his lifetime. That's it. Never saw his success. And you think about that. Are you willing to stick with it long enough, even if you never see that? Because he's made an impact. And so, but part of it, like you're saying, is you've got to have those resources to draw from. And that comes from putting that information in, having that draw bank, basically.
Yeah. John Wooden said, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do. So if you can't go to college, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Start putting some money aside that you can, or trade school or whatever it is. Everybody has money. They can go on, Amazon and buy a book. Anybody can go on Audible and buy a book. Start doing exactly what you're talking about, Nick, in feeding yourself positive forms of media that's going to develop you and help you, and start doing some personal investment. Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. YouTube is free and full of information.
University YouTube.
Yeah.
That's a running joke with my girlfriend. I'm always like, babe, how do I do this? And she's like, YouTubeology.
Yeah. YouTube and Google.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, Nick, I
think
on all this stuff, man, these, like, every single week, it's amazing to me. Like, we feel like we could keep going forever and ever. And and all of a sudden we blink and it's been an hour. And I feel like we haven't even dived into like everything I want to talk about. I'm like just dying for more. We probably need to have like a part two, at some point. If we could have you on again, Jared, at some point in time, we'd love to have you back, and maybe then we could even dive into some other principles that you teach. Is that all right if we reach out at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just got done doing an event called The Awakening, and it's based on 4 books. And I think a lot of people that bought tickets to it thought they were just going to come hear like my story. And again, I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I want to share what I've learned. And so I would love to be able to kind of go over those books in a episode 2, or
that would be awesome.
And kind of talk about the principles that I learned from them and my takeaways. So yeah, let's do it.
Perfect.
Well, I want to wrap up. I love it, man. I could keep going for hours. but I want to talk to our viewers, you that are watching this, you, the individual that sees this and is getting hit by this message, because it's you that we're speaking to. And, in a broad sense, yeah, there are a lot of us humans on here, but it's you that are on here watching this entire thing. And the journey is for everyone. Everybody has access to it. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world or what you're up to or what you were born into or what clay you were handed, you have access to this journey of becoming a giant. And it really takes a willingness to get started, like you said, Jared, to get started and to not quit. And that no matter what happens in your life, to just keep going, because eventually you're going to start to see changes. You're going to start to see shifts in your life, in your relationships, and everything around you. And so we would invite you to just keep going, to just keep plugging away, to wake up every morning intentional about what you're going to create for that day and just keep doing it. And we can promise you that one day you're going to wake up a giant looking back going, holy crap, man, an hour went by, a lifetime went by. It didn't feel like that, it did when you're in it. Right.
Right.
But
it's funny. Exactly what you're talking about is the compound effect by Darren Hardy. I'll throw one out there.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Awesome. Compound effect by Darren Hardy is exactly what you're talking about, Nick. Yep.
I love it.
Key, buddy.
I've never read it, so I need to read that.
It's a good one.
Join us next week. We got another great guest next week. We do lives. I do lives every morning. I'm committed to that for you, and I speak to you individually. I think we get too broad sometimes, but it's you. And so we appreciate you. And thanks for being on the show. Jared, thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, I'm grateful. Thank you guys. I hope I was able to provide some kind of good entertainment.
You provided a lot.
There was tons of great nuggets in there, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, guys, go make it a giant day. We'll see you on the next video, and thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys.